Welcome back to Morning Express. It is now just about 17 minutes to 7 Kenyan time, and it's time for us to focus on a very important day. Today is the 16th day of June 2016, but it is also the day that is known as the Day of the African Child. And just to give you a little bit of statistics regarding this particular day, it was, well, first of all, an event that honors the memories of students who were massacred in Soweto, South Africa in 1976 for protesting against education injustice and inequality in the apartheid regime. So that's the genesis of the Day of the African Child. It is also a day that, well, of course, we'd like to commemorate world over and remember. Now, the theme for this year, for the Day of the African Child, is right to participate. Let children be seen and heard. Remember that there was a time that children were to be seen and not to be heard. But of course, with that now changing, and this year the theme is right to participate. So of course the child is allowed to participate, and the child is also to be seen and be heard. Not just to be seen and not be heard, but to be seen and heard. It was designed as the Day of the African Child in 1991 by the African Union, and every year the events are organized to promote children's rights. So that's basically what we're going to be talking about here this morning. And joining me to have that conversation, let me start first of all, this being the theme of this year, that the African child should be seen and heard. Let me start with Bradley Ochieng, who is a young man. Bradley, good to have you.
Thank you.
How old are you, Bradley?
I'm 14.
14 years old.
Yeah.
Okay. Fantastic. And first of all, I love your name. That's a very nice name. Tell me, what do you think of the Day of the African Child? Do you think it's important?
Yeah, I think it's important because it's a day when we children get to express ourselves. We children get to celebrate that we're children. And also it's a day to remind our parents that we're always there.
Oh, fantastic. Well, joining us also to have that conversation is Ben Aliwa, who is on my immediate left. And Ben Aliwa is the Director and Regional and Multi-Country Program Unit for Save the Children International. Good to have you.
Good morning.
And welcome. Then last but not least, we have Andrew Okwara, who's the Managing Director, East Africa for Bridge International Academies. Good to have you, sir.
Thank you, Mike.
All right, let's start with you, Andrew, and in regards to education, because I know that that is also a very key and important factor when we are focusing on the child, for them to be seen and heard. Do you think we've made adequate progress when it comes to educating the African child to be ready to face the world that we live in today?
I would say we've made quite a bit of progress. However, there's a lot of room for improvement. I mean, the statistics from Weather Report, which was released a couple of weeks ago, also from the African Union report, point to actually very significant statistics. For example, 30 million out of the 57 million children worldwide who are not in education actually exist in sub-Saharan Africa. That is very significant. You look at other statistics, 4.5% of the poorest children in any economy are out of school as compared to the much more affluent children. That's also significant. If you look at other statistics, where's a report, 8% of adults have been out of education. 63% of children who are aged 7 to 13 cannot do or pass literacy and numeracy tests of a standard 2 student. And this figure is actually higher than 2013, where the figure was 59%. So if you look at those statistics,
does that mean we are retrogressing? We are taking 3 steps forward and 2 backwards?
That's what the statistics show. So you could say something really active needs to be done to improve these statistics.
Okay. All right, Ben, given some of the figures and statistics we're getting from Andrew, and we know that one of the rights for a child is right to education. What might be the cause for us to be taking those 4 steps forward and 3 backwards?
I think there's a lot of things. Just to, first of all, to clarify, this year's theme is conflict and crisis in Africa. And it's aiming at protecting all children. Now, going back to statistics, I think that sets the context in terms of the enormity of the issue at hand. Africa is the fastest growing continent. But in Africa is also the continent with the most protracted conflict and crises. And the most vulnerable populations affected are actually children. This results into various atrocities against children, you know, sexual and gender-based violence, schools and hospitals being used by military, either pro-government or rebels. You have children exposed to maiming and killing, trafficking, and all sorts of vulnerabilities. And I think what is important is, as you say, is to get the African leaders, both at regional and national level, to actually move commitment from policy to practice and think about the prevention, the response, and adjusting the policy and legal environment so that children who are in conflict, in armed conflict, are actually protected in various ways.
In various ways. All right, let me come to Bradley. And Bradley, in terms of your education, what do you feel so far as a child? Do you feel like you've got adequate education? Are there some things that possibly you look at children, maybe, I know you're one who might be exposed, and maybe the children you've seen in other countries or other continents that you feel possibly are more advantaged than you are?
Well, I wouldn't complain though, because at Bridge we have everything. Not only do we have, we provided textbooks, but also the teachers use a much higher technology. But then, considering other places, there are children who learn under trees, as were provided with classes. And then there are other kids who get like practical lessons based on the programs that they learn. Like, if for example I was studying social studies and then I'm told like to measure the map of an area, I'm like, okay, I'll measure it. But then when I'm told, when the real thing comes, I can't be able to approximate, because all I know is I have to measure it to know it. So something like practical lessons could really help, because like when you, after you study social, then you're taken outside, you're shown a place, you're able to approximate it, and that can really help, because other places we've heard of children being able to know the distance from one place to another without even needing to measure the place. Yeah.
Okay, let me come to you, Andrew, and maybe for the benefit of those who may not know what Bridge International Academies is all about, maybe just give us a brief synopsis of what you do.
Okay, Bridge International Academies, we're an education organization. We now number 405 schools in Kenya, 63 in Uganda, 4 in Nigeria, and we should be opening 5 in India. We are a Kenyan company, so one of the first or to be multinational companies founded in Kenya. We have 82,209 students, as I said, in 405 schools, and teach 844 KCPE. Our first class sat last year, and we did actually very well. We enhance technology and to enable this scale of operations, 405 schools. For example, we are cashless. We only accept M-Pesa through Equity Bank. We've got a 0.8% to 0.8% nil absenteeism rate of our teachers. We have substitute teachers. We also enhance technology, as Bradley mentioned. Teachers use tablets to teach. Our academy manager does all the administration through a smartphone application. So we have embraced and enhanced technology in all our lessons. We track students' performance. We track teachers' performance. We've got a QA team, that's quality assessment team, that actually assesses our teachers, provides active feedback to our teachers and also students.
Do you work together with the Ministry of Education in the country first of all, do you work together, or is it a separate education system altogether?
No, we work with the Ministry of Education. The new regulations released earlier this year, we're working with them to ensure that our schools are registered, our schools actually provide that education. Because, Michael, one of the things and the most important concept, when I talk about accessibility, I mentioned the quality through embracing education, but It's also, where was our first school? Our first school was in Mukurukwa Njenga a settlement, informal settlement, and Mukurukwa Ruben. We've got schools in Kawangware. We've got schools in inaccessible areas that, informal settlements, as Ben has mentioned, these are areas that need that accessibility to education, quality education at that. So our first two schools are actually in KCP 100% pass rate, and the students scored an average of 333 marks in the last year's examinations. And we hope to build on that later this year.
Let me come to you, Ben, as we maybe get closer to our winding up this particular conversation and look at the Day of the African Child. How does it relate to our children here in Kenya? It is an international day, but how does it relate to us?
Yeah, I think one of the most important things to think about, again, is the issue of equity. So the process broadly is describing what should be, and 40% of African population is children. Of that, about 40% of African population, the population is 14 and below are actually representative of children. So that's the magnitude of what we are looking at. Children in conflict areas do not have access to basic services. So forget even about the quality, but that's the access to get to school. Yes. Because sometimes it's militarized or it's being used by rebels or the government. So I think what's important is to really encourage the governments to bridge the gap between the policy commitments. We have international laws. We have commitments that have been made. We've signed up to the Convention of the Right of the Child Welfare. We work with the African Committee of Experts. In South Sudan alone, we are celebrating reunifying 4,000 children through family tracing and unification with their families. And that is essentially the social fabric of what tomorrow contains for our country. With the crisis in Dadaab and the Department of Refugees being closed, what does that mean? I think we need to reflect on responsible and humane nature of ensuring that children affected by conflict and crises are actually looked at as a vulnerable fabric of our society, but also really, really the future leaders of tomorrow.
Okay. Bradley, what is it that you would like to see after, we've commemorated the Day of the African Child? What is it that you dream that would change when it comes to Africa and looking at you and other children? You mentioned earlier that the African child, is somewhat, left in the back burner. What is it that you'd like to see?
Well, I'd like to see a lot of things. One of them is basically on parents. Parents today have very little time for their kids. Some kids tend to go to other friends to share their problems. So I'd like, after this celebration, parents to be a bit open with their kids, and then also to kids. We don't like talking to parents that much because maybe you're scared he or she might come to that topic which you don't like. But then being open to them can basically help all of us to be able to be talkative, to be able to interact with their parents, because 90% of our time is at school, but then that 10% which we have with them, we can use it because you don't know what tomorrow has. Maybe you might wake up tomorrow, you find you don't have a parent. Talking to them might really help you to know what your parent is going through, what he's thinking, and then it might also help your parent to know about his child, because he expects to know about his child better than anyone else. And if us kids don't talk to our parents, then they'll never know. And then also to reduce, because of everything that's happening, 80% of what's happening is affecting women and children. So let's just say that 40%, let's say it's on women, and then that remaining percentage is on children. Children are dying at a very high rate. We've heard of stories whereby parents cannot be able to support their children. So we'd like the government to take that priority as first, because kids are the next generation.
Okay.
And without them, there's nothing to
We
look
have
for
no
tomorrow.
future. All right, thank you very much, Bradley Ochieng. And finally, let me finish with Andrew Okwara. And you've definitely done a very good job with Bradley, and I hope that all the children within the system are at par with him. That's very good.
Yes,
is our education system, is Bridge education system based in the UK? Is it from the UK?
No, it's Kenyan. It's 844. 844 system. We said KCPE. We're outcome oriented.
Okay.
And that's where the whole education system worldwide is moving towards. Prepare the next generation to efficiently take up the next challenges. I mean, there's one expression I was once told, and that's why when I go to the various schools, I start by telling our teachers that thank you. Because I believe that's one of the hardest responsibilities and jobs. Because you are actually, when we were young, there were no mobile phones, there were no iPads, there was none of that. But a teacher goes to a classroom and you're actually preparing children, the next generation, for jobs that don't exist. So, education, what we do now determines the future.
Okay, we'll have to wind it up right there because of time. Thank you very much, Ben Aliwa from Save the Children International. We have Bradley Ochieng, a young man, very confident, and wish you all the best in your future. And last but not least, Andrew Okwara, who is the Managing Director, East Africa from Bridge International Academies. That's where we're going to wind up this section. But do stay with us right here on Morning Express, where we are going to be having State of the Nation coming next. And of course, one of the things that we'd like to tackle is just the issue of, well, our leaders and the polarization that we have seen in this country, and hoping that as we get closer to 2017, that this is not going to be the case. Do stay with us right here on Morning Express. We'll be right back with State of the Nation.